and will be or will set the tone for how ECOSOC, our future engagement processes will be built and will be coordinated. So through the platform, organizations can create and manage their profiles. They can submit applications. They can also update their information when needed and also engage with various ECOSOC opportunities and also processes through this one centralized system. So moving into a digital platform was a really important step for us for several reasons. So the first is because it allows us to move away from, a largely manual process. So making our engagement more efficient, both for ECOSOC and also our stakeholders. Secondly, it also helps us in terms of transparency to ensure that we're enabling organizations to be able to track and also manage their submissions through this one single platform. And the third being that it helps us to expand access to ensure that organizations from all regions of Africa and also the African diaspora can engage with ECOSOC, regardless of their location. So most importantly, ECOSOC Connect helps us to, build a more modern and also a more responsive and inclusive system for civil society participation in the AU affairs. And many of you already are familiar with this platform through the ongoing call for the applications for the 5th Permanent General Assembly, which was launched on the 15th of May, as mentioned by Ms. Chilombo. And for the first time, this process is being managed through the ECOSOC Connect, as a part of our broader transition towards a fully digital engagement system. So for those who have already started the process, you would have noticed that it begins with creating an organizational profile on ECOSOC Connect. So once that profile has been reviewed internally and also approved internally, organizations are then able to proceed with applications, including applications to the 5th Permanent General Assembly. So for participants that have yet to register on the ECOSOC Connect platform, don't worry, we've prepared a short demonstration video that will show you how to register your organization, how to complete your profile, and also submit any required information and make updates when necessary. So with that, we will proceed with a short demonstration. To keep your registration process moving smoothly, make sure you regularly check your emails for important notifications and updates on any tasks assigned to your organization. From your email, simply click Review Corrections Welcome to ECOSOCC Connect, your gateway to engaging with ECOSOCC. This platform enables civil society organizations to register, manage profiles, explore opportunities, and participate in ECOSOCC's activities and initiatives. In this tutorial, I'll guide you step by step through creating your account, completing your profile, navigating the platform, and submitting your permanent General Assembly application. By the end of this, you'll be ready to use ECOSOCC Connect confidently and make the most of everything the platform has to offer. Let's get you started on ECOSOCC Connect. First things first, open your preferred browser and head over to the ECOSOCC Connect homepage. Once you land on the homepage, you're ready to begin creating your profile. Here's a helpful tip before you go further. You can easily switch to your preferred language right from the homepage. Just click on the language icon in the top right corner and select the language that makes navigation most comfortable for you. Now to get started, click on Create Profile. This will take you to the registration page where you'll be asked to enter your email address and set up a secure password. Before you proceed, take a moment to go through the terms of service. It's always good practice to understand the guidelines before completing your user profile. Once you've entered your email address and chosen a secure password, a verification link will be sent straight to your inbox. Simply open your email, click the verification link, and confirm your email address. This step helps secure your account and ensure everything is properly set up. Once that's complete, you're officially ready to move forward and start your ECOSOCC journey. Before getting started, let's set up your profile so we can personalize your experience on the platform. In the first step, you'll be asked to provide a few personal details, including your title, full name, and job title. Once completed, click Continue to move to the next step. Next, you'll enter your contact, location information, fill in your nationality, phone number, and preferred time zone. After completing all the required fields, click the Complete Setup button, and that's it. Your profile setup is complete, and you'll be taken directly to your dashboard where you can begin exploring the platform. Welcome to your dashboard, your all-in-one hub for managing everything on the platform. On the left-hand navigation panel, you can quickly navigate the main sections of the platform and move seamlessly between your tools and applications. Let's start with Workspace. This is your home base where everything comes together. Here, you can navigate your dashboard for a quick snapshot of updates, your statuses, and anything that needs your attention. Within My Organization, this is where you manage and view your organization's profile. And from your inbox, you can access all official messages and notifications in one place. Under Activities, this is where the action happens. Your active workspace for completing tasks, accreditation, and application forms. Everything you need to keep things moving forward is right here. Under Accounts, this is all about you and your support tools. Under Help, this is your go-to space for guides, tips, and support whenever you need a hand. And navigate to your profile to update your personal information at any time.
Be sure to keep an eye on the notification icon in the top right corner for important updates on your application deadlines, approval notifications, and also platform updates and reminders. You can also manage your account settings and update your profile anytime through the user menu located in the top right corner of the platform. At the top of your page of your dashboard, you see a personalized welcome message along with a progress tracker that helps guide you. In the Getting Started section, you can easily track your progress. Completed steps will be marked with a green check, while upcoming steps remain available for you to complete. As you complete each step, your progress will automatically update, helping you stay on track throughout. Now, take a few moments to explore the layout and get comfortable with where everything is located.
Thank you to our technical team for that video. So that was a quick demonstration on how to create a profile on the ECOSOCC Connect platform and also proceed with registering your organization profile within the ECOSOCC Connect platform. We will now also show you a very quick video, a demonstration on how to address corrections post registering your organization profile on the ECOSOCC Connect platform. So shortly, our technical team will be playing that demonstration for us.
To keep your registration process moving smoothly, make sure you regularly check your emails for important notifications and updates on any tasks assigned to your organization. From your email, simply click Review Corrections to be taken directly to your account login page. Once you're logged in, it will take you to My Organization under Workspace. However, you can easily track everything from your dashboard. Whenever a correction request is issued, a notification banner will appear right on your dashboard. Just click Open Task on that banner to view the request. After opening the correction request, you'll be taken to a summary page showing exactly what needs to be updated. Take a moment to carefully review the reviewer's notes, make the necessary corrections, and resubmit your registration. You can also add any supporting comments for the reviewers when submitting your updates. Once submitted, you'll see a summary of all submitted information, followed by a confirmation tab indicating task completion. After that, the process is complete and you can return to your dashboard. Just a quick tip. There are a few simple ways to access your correction request at any time. In addition to the dashboard banner, you can also use the left side menu by going to Activities and then selecting Tasks to review any tasks assigned. You can also click the notification icon at the top right corner of the platform to view all recent updates and notifications. You're now all set to navigate correction requests with ease. Just remember to check your emails regularly so you never miss an update. If you need support at any point, refer back to these steps and follow the prompts on your dashboard.
Okay, thank you very much to our technical team, and thank you all for your attention during the demonstration. So hopefully this walkthrough has provided, clarity on the registration process and how organizations can effectively engage within the platform. So we'll now move quickly to the next session, which will really focus on ECOSOCC's governance structure and also the application process for the 5th Permanent General Assembly. So this session will be led by our Senior Legal Officer, Mr. Bekele, and we'll be providing participants, especially those interacting with ECOSOCC for the first time, with a better understanding of, ECOSOCC's mandate and also the role of the General Assembly as the institution's highest decision-making body. So we ask that you do listen to this session keenly, because it's going to cover guidance on the application process for the 5th Permanent General Assembly, eligibility criteria, covering things like the rights documentation that's needed for the 5th PGA. So please pay keen attention to this session, and to lead us through this presentation, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Lagiziber Bekele, our Senior Legal Officer. Mr. Bekele, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Adesola. Again, let me welcome you on behalf of Africa Union ECOSOCC to this webinar. My name is Lagiziber Bekele. I am the Senior Legal Officer within the ECOSOCC Secretariat. Today, my job is to provide, an in-depth presentation and clarification, for that matter, on the GA application process, looking at the eligibility criteria, what are the application requirements, supporting documents, and then also providing tips for preparing a strong application. But before that, I would give you a bit of an overview on our mandate as organ of the Africa Union, governance structure, and the role of the General Assembly as the highest decision-making body of ECOSOCC. To start with our mandate, ECOSOCC is an advisory and consultative organ of the Africa Union. We were established in 2004, pursuant to Articles 5.1 and 22 of the AU Constitutive Act. That is a legal document establishing the African Union as a whole. The legal framework governing our operation is called ECOSOCC Statute. It was adopted in July 2004 and revised in February this year. Our mandate is primarily to promote dialogue between all segments of African people on issues concerning the continent and its future. And basically, it's to amplify African citizens' voice in the policies and programs of the African Union. In that capacity, we undertake a number of functions. Number one, we issue advisory opinions and reports at the request of AU heads of state and government. Basically, the purpose of the advisory opinion is to provide input into the AU policies and programs, and that input comes from the African grassroots. Number two, we undertake studies. Number three, we serve as a central representation body for CSO engagement within the African Union. We also foster and consolidate partnership between AU, CSOs, African regional economic communities, regional mechanisms, mainly to ensure effective public sensitization, engagement, mobilization, and feedback on our activities and initiatives. We also serve as an advocate and defend AU shared values, including our values on human rights, the rule of law, good governance, gender equality, and so on and so forth. These are, in a nutshell, our core mandates. Now, looking at the General Assembly, this is comprised of our elected CSO members, having gone through an in-depth evaluation and assessment process. Our GA has a number of categories, those operating at the national level. These are 3 per member state. In AU, we have over 55 member states. So in total, we have 165 CSOs operating at the national level. We have 10 CSOs operating at the regional level, 2 per region. In AU, we have 5 regions. We have Northern region, Southern region, East, West, and Central regions, as well as our 6th region, which is the diaspora region. But the 10 CSOs are those operating at the regional level, at the level of the continent. And then we have 8 CSOs operating at the continental level. We have 20 CSOs, African diaspora CSOs. And then finally, we have 6 CSOs appointed by the chairperson of the Africa Union Commission. In total, the GA is comprised of 209 members. These are all CSO who applied and then went through a comprehensive vetting and election process. And what is the function of the General Assembly? It's our highest decision-making process, decision-making body. It includes also those who are, coming from the diaspora as our 6th region of the continent. And they give us highest level of political and strategic leadership. Now, coming to the application process for the General Assembly, specifically for the 5th ECOSOCC Permanent General Assembly, our statute provides for an eligibility criteria for a CSO to apply for our GA. So the first criteria is that you should be an organization. You need to have a legal personality, duly registered in a member state of the union or the diaspora. So ECOSOCC is a CSO-based membership. Individuals are not eligible to apply for ECOSOCC General Assembly. So either you are a national, regional, continental, or African diaspora CSO. The second requirement is registration. You have to provide proof of valid registration as an African CSO in AU member state or as an African diaspora CSO. And you have to be operational at least for 3 years preceding submission of your application, including proof of continuous operations throughout this period. So, for example, if you are a CSO based in Ghana, you have to provide proof of valid certificate of registration from a competent authority of Ghana. And for those who are operating at the regional and continental levels, the requirement of registration is, for example, if you are applying for a regional level application, you have to submit registration in 2 member states in a given region. For example, if you are coming from Western Africa region, you have to show at least registration from, for example, Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal. And if you are applying for a continental level membership, you have to show registration in at least 2 regions of the continent. For example, West and East, South, North, and vice versa. So that is the second requirement of registration. The third requirement is you have to submit the most recent annual audit statement by an independent auditing firm, including information on funding sources. When we say funding sources, is your funding coming from your members? Is it coming from your government, private sector, international organization, or any other funding partner? You have to give us the source of those funding. And the statement should be issued no later than 2 years prior to your application for membership. The fourth requirement is to provide proof that the ownership and management of your organization consists of not less than 50% of African or African diaspora people. And it should be a valid proof. Number 5, you have to provide proof that substantially at least 50% of your basic resources are derived from contributions at the national level or African institution. Perhaps let me pause here and then provide more clarification. What do you mean by basic resources? These are resources we are referring to as operating cost. Any organization has an operating cost, and then you have a program cost. So your basic resources, which is an operating cost of your organization, at least 50% should come from contributions at the national level or African institutions. When we say at the national level, we are referring to either contribution from your members or other stakeholders within your country. It could be government, it could be private sector, and so on and so forth. When we say African institutions, these are institutions where African countries are a member. For example, United Nations. If you have contribution from the United Nations, from African Union, African financial institutions such as Afrexim Bank, African Development Bank, or even African private sectors, these are the one we refer to when we say African institutions. So your proof should clearly show that your basic resources are derived from those sources. And I want to underscore that this is also one of our disqualifying criteria. If you don't give us the right information, and if we cannot make a clear determination as to your funding sources, then we'll have to disqualify you. So from experience, in the previous election process and application process, most CSOs or most applicants fail this requirement. I believe I have provided more light into this requirement. And the focus, again, I want to reiterate, is your basic resources. For example, if you have $100 as your operating cost, then obviously $50 from that should come from resources at the national level. So resources at the national level for African institutions. We have also additional requirement, apart from the core requirement I've mentioned above. The additional requirements are the following. Number 1, your objectives and principles that should be consistent with the principles and objectives of the AU, as set out in Article 3 and 4 of the AU Constitutive Act. I'm very sure you have access to our Constitutive Act. You can easily go to our website and make sure that your objectives, your values, principles do align with our values at the AU level. The second additional requirement is you have to demonstrate proficiency in thematic areas relevant to ECOSOCC mandate. We have 14 thematic areas. I'm very sure you've seen it in our website. And you have to show that you have proficiency, and you have to provide proof that you have been operating in those areas of thematic areas you have chosen. And similarly, especially if you are applying as a continental and regional CSOs, you have to show that you have the thematic expertise in more than one member states, basically, right? For example, if you are registered and operating in Ethiopia and in Kenya, you have to show that you have been operating within those thematic areas in those two member states. And you have to show a proof for that. Lastly, CSOs that discriminate on any basis inconsistent with AU values and principles, including religion, gender, tribe, ethnic, racial, or political affiliation, are also ineligible to participate in ECOSOC General Assembly. And we do our own background check to determine that a CSO do not discriminate on those areas. In essence, these are the main requirement that we are looking for in your applications. With that, now I would walk you through the application process, and I would invite my colleague to project the application process to the participant. And maybe to start at this point, before you get into the General Assembly application process, you have to complete your registration, and then that registration should be approved by the accreditation officer. Of course, you go through, at times, a corrective process. If you have submitted a wrong certificate, for example, we request you to correct that information, and so on and so forth, right? And once you have made a successful registration, and then now you'll be given a link for you to access the application for the 5th Permanent General Assembly. And you receive like this kind of link where you can go and then apply for the 5th General Assembly. Could you start? Let's start the application process. Click on the apply. Apologies, we are having a connectivity issue. Bear with us for a few minutes. Let me project myself. Let me try on this side. Okay, I think it has now worked. So before you begin your application, I advise you also to read the instructions carefully. You are advised, number one, to carefully review the official membership eligibility criteria, the one I just presented. And you have to prepare also your supporting documents before completing this application, the application form. Number two, all sections of the application must be completed using the official records. And also you have to attach all supporting documents proving that whatever you are saying is indeed true. Where a question or section is not applicable to your organization, and then of course you can indicate not applicable. And number 4 is very, very important. Most applicants fail this requirement. I want to strongly advise that you have to attach a clear, eligible, complete, and duly certified and authenticated documents. Maybe to give you one example is that when it comes to an auditing statement, you have to submit an auditing statement that is done by an independent auditing firm that is duly, authenticated and verified. And for us, if we have any doubt in your application, we would immediately undertake a background check and engage the concerned member states to verify authenticity of your submission. Any invalid submission will result in disqualification of your application. And finally, you will have to declare that what you have submitted is indeed true to the best of your knowledge, and then you have to append in your electronic signature. Let's start. Yes, that's it. Let's proceed to now the application process. The first section is your details that is specific to your organization. So under this section is you provide your profile, the name of your organization, acronym, in what language are you submitting, and what in AU we have 6 working languages. These are Arabic, English, French, Spanish, Swahili, and Portuguese. So you'll have to indicate that in which language are you conversant with. You have to at least select at least one of the AU working language. And then you will have to provide your contact information, such as postal address, telephone number, and official email address. Also, if you have, we want to know your social media handles in all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. If you have a website, share with us your website as well. And then the second section is on location classification. Under this section, we have 2 main categories. We have African CSOs. These are CSOs registered in Africa. As I mentioned to you, we have 55 member states in Africa Union. And if you are registered in one of those member states, you will have to select African CSOs. If you are an African diaspora CSO registered outside of the continent, you click the second category. And for most of you are from the continent at this point, so you will have to select African CSO. And then you pick the countries you are lawfully registered. We don't accept affiliation. We don't accept operational presence. You need to show us you are lawfully registered with a lawful certificate of registration for us to determine that you are indeed operating in that country with a lawful registration. Let's proceed. So in terms of your registration status, as you can see here, we want to know the authority that issued the certificate. We want to know your registration number and date of your registration. Also, you have to attach proof of that valid registration. When you say valid, as you may know, we've been doing this election for the longest time. we have a database for all certificates coming from member states of the union. So if we received a certificate that is not valid, then that will result in automatic disqualification. And also we know that some certificates are time-bound. That means after some times they expire. And we want to know your expiry date, if at all, and make sure that you submit a valid certificate that is not expired. From our review of applications so far, we've seen some applicants submitting an interim certificate that is going to expire, for example, in 3 months, in 2 months. And we find those to be, valid, but going forward, if we came to know that at the time of evaluation of the application, it has expired, we will immediately disqualify you. So make sure to submit a valid and lawful certificate of registration. Let's proceed. Now, let's talk about your mission. And before that, could you go back? Just back to the information. Yes, to the first section. Let's go to the last requirement. Yes, here it talks about special strict focus. This is a new requirement that was approved this year with the revised statute. This section intends to focus on those CSOs working around issues of women and women empowerment and youth. And it applies for those CSOs applying for a national level membership. As I mentioned to you earlier on, we have 3 slots for each member states. So of the 3, 1 is dedicated to only those CSOs operating on issues of women and youth empowerment. And if you are an organization working on areas of women empowerment and youth, we advise you to apply for this seat. And not only that you work around these areas, even the person you're going to designate should be women if you are applying for women empowerment segment, and it should be youth if you are applying for a youth segment. When you say youth, as per the AU Youth Charter, is someone who is 35 and below. So as a requirement, we want to see that the designated individual from your organization is a woman or youth, depending on which segment you are picking. So this is also very important to keep it in mind. Next. The next section is on mission and governance. This is pretty much straightforward. Based on our review so far, most organizations are filling this section very well. We have not seen any problems. So you have to simply tell us the vision and mission of your organization. What are your goals and objectives? And then we want to know your programmatic priorities aligned with our Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 is our development blueprint approved by the policy organ, the kind of Africa we want to see by 2063. And I'm very sure you are aware of this continental document. If not, I would encourage you to access our AU website and then go through this document for you to look at our priority areas and tell us whether you have programs that is aligned with the priorities of Agenda 2063. Next. This is again part of the criteria I mentioned to you earlier, governance and ownership. You have to tell us yes or no. African ownership and management threshold, at least, as I mentioned to you, 50% of your management should be made up of either African or African diaspora. And as a requirement, you have to answer yes. If the answer is no, it means you don't meet the requirement. It's another disqualifying requirement that will disqualify you from the application process. African basic resources threshold, as I mentioned to you, 50% of your basic resources must come from Africa or African institutions. And you have to confirm that indeed that 50% of your basic resources come from those sources. And if you say yes, you have to support it with evidence, valid proof again. Down there, when we reach to the section of supporting document, we want to see that you have attached documents supporting your response to this section. In terms of category of organization, we have NGOs, we have social groups, we have professional groups, community-based organization, volunteer organization, and so on and so forth. You have to pick the category that is aligned with your organization. If you have any subsidiary or affiliate organization as well, please tell us so, and then list those affiliate organization you have, and then we want to know the names and details of those organizations. Another question is, does your organization charge membership fees? If yes, then tell us the amount, and then tell us how many members are paying those fees. If not, simply click on not applicable. Next. This is also another important section. As I mentioned to you, ECOSOCC is an organization-based organ of the African Union. However, you have to tell us names that represent you in the General Assembly. And you have to tell us the details of that individual. For example, in this case, the full name, date of birth, gender, occupation, nationality, country of residence. And when we say country of residence, for African-based CSOs, you cannot provide a designated rep that lives outside of Africa. If you are registered in Ghana, in this case, for example, your designated rep should come from an African country. Not necessarily in Ghana, but it will have to be someone based in the continent, not someone who's based outside of the continent. So that should be very, very clear. And it's one requirement that can result in disqualification as well. So the country of residence of your designated rep should come from the African continent. We want to know the academic and professional qualification. The reason we are asking for this qualification is that, as I mentioned to you, ECOSOCC is an advisory organ of the Union. And one of our core mandates is we generate advisory opinions into various policies and programs of the Union. Assume that, for example, AU is developing a policy around free movements. And as ECOSOCC, we want to provide advisory opinion around that policy. And we want to have individuals who have the competency and the qualification to provide those advisory opinions. And for that to happen, we want to have designated rep who have the qualification and experience around the 14 thematic areas we've mentioned. Just for example, to give you one of these thematic areas, for example, we have a thematic area around finance, monetary affairs, economic planning. We have on social development, labor and employment. I'm very sure if you go to our election page on our website, you would see those 14 thematic areas. So we want to have designated rep that has qualification around those thematic areas. Let's move on. The same thing, employment and professional experience, skills and knowledge, you have to give us. This is basically a digital CV of your designated rep. Working language, as I mentioned to you, in AU, we have 6 working language. Your designated rep should be conversant with at least 1 AU language. Then email address, phone number, WhatsApp number, and so on and so forth. The same requirement for your alternate rep as well. The same requirement applies. In the event that the primary designate is not available, of course, you will send to us the alternate. So the same requirement applies to the alternate as well. Let's move. Sectoral focus areas. This is the one I was referring to. For ECOSOCC, we have 14 sectoral cluster committees. These committees are our core operational mechanism to generate advisory opinions. So you'll have to choose at least, you have to choose at least 3 thematic areas in the order of your preference. For example, if your primary preference is finance, that's number 1. If use and trade, but you have to give at least 3 thematic areas that your organization is expertise at. And in terms of the qualification, we want both the organization and then the designated rep to have those qualification and expertise. Next. This is now another very important element, which is funding details. One of our main requirements is source of your funding. And you'll have to give us every funding you have received and the source of those fundings. The first requirement is local currency. Are you using CDs, Naira, BIR, Rand, Kwacha? You have to tell us the kind of currency you're using, right? And then if you are applying membership fees, you have to tell us yes or not. We want to know. And if you said yes, we want to know how much is the contribution. Is it $1? Is it 20 kwacha? We want to know all that. If it's no. This is for our own purposes. It doesn't result in disqualification, but it will add up into your basic resources we are referring to earlier on. The same requirement if you have received contribution from your members, let us know. We want to know as well. The same requirement if you have received funding from government, funding from international organizations. These are UN, African Union, ECOWAS, IGAD, EU. Again, we want to know that as well. If you have received funding from private sector, we want to know as well the amount and the details of the private sector that gave you that funding. We want to know. The same thing, funding from other NGOs is also applicable here. Lastly, if you have income generated from contracts, for example, if you have engaged into some form of consultancy contracts, grants, you name it, we want to know also that funding as well. And lastly, if you have any other sources that is not part of the above list, again, we want to know as well. The purpose of this funding detail is for us to determine ultimately if your basic resources comes from local sources or African institutions, because if you don't meet that requirement, that is a cause for disqualification as well. Next. This one is on supporting documents, a very important section as well. Whatever you said before this, you will have to provide document verifying and supporting your claim. If you say that, for example, you have to attach your constitutions, charter, and statute, we want to know, because whatever objectives and purposes you mentioned, we should find those objectives and purposes in your statute or constitution, number one. If you say that if you have to provide proof of operation in a member states, this is in the form of a certificate of registration, we want to as well. It should be a valid certificate. We want to know your current member of board. Again, you have to provide certified document proving the list of your members of board or committee. You have to attach your latest publication and reports for us to determine that those thematic areas you mentioned that you are working around should be supported by those publication and reports. It could be project, it could be your annual report, and so on and so forth. You have to provide, again, document, providing us information on your funding sources. Again, it will have to be a verified and valid document showing us source of your funding, both your operating cost as well as your program budget as well. And lastly, you will have to give us an audit report undertaken by an independent auditing firm. It will have to be lawful auditing report. It would have to be certified auditing report. In the past, we've had instances whereby we received an audit report that is not a report from an auditing firm, and that results in immediate disqualification, and it's also subject for future disciplinary proceedings, because that would result in not only disbarred from the current application, even from future applications as well. So you'll have to submit valid audit statement from a lawful independent auditing firm. We'll have to provide contact details of the auditing company as well. And lastly, of course, you will have to review your submissions before clicking submit. So in terms of one important tips I want to mention here is that especially the biggest disqualifying factor is supporting documents. Either we are getting a document that is not valid, that is not certified, or that doesn't have the required information. For example, we've seen in the past an applicant on the section of information on funding sources attaching an auditing report instead of giving us the actual source of funding, right? That one would immediately result in disqualification. So give us, usually, we want a valid, clear document, because for every application, you have to know that we undertake background check. We engage your member states. If you're applying from Ethiopia, we engage Ethiopian government to know that this information is indeed certified and is lawful, right? So focus on giving us valid information and valid supporting documents. I believe the application process is straightforward. It's very, very clear. It's user-friendly, right? If you have any challenges, we have an email line that you can send us your requests. We usually respond to you instantly. Even from our side, if we need more information, we'll get back to you. But if the information that you shared with us is unlawful and it's not true, that would result in automatic disqualification from the process. In essence, that is my presentation, basically to give you a walkthrough of the application process as well as what is ECOSOCC, our mandate, our function, and the power of the ECOSOCC General Assembly. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Adesola.
Thank you very much, Senior Legal Officer, Mr. Bikile, for that presentation. Hope you can all hear me. So thank you, Mr. Bikile, again for the presentation and for providing our participants with a comprehensive overview of ECOSOCC and also the application process for the 5th Permanent General Assembly. From the Q&A box, I'm sure that the presentation has triggered many questions. So because of that, we would now proceed directly to our question and answer session. So participants who have not already made use of the Q&A section, please, I encourage you, you're all invited to submit your questions through the Q&A box, just so that we can capture as many concerns and respond to as many questions as possible. So as we begin, I will take the first questions that have already been submitted during the presentation. So I will start with 2 questions just because a lot of them are quite loaded, and to give the legal officer time to, fully respond to them as much as possible. So the first question, I think, walking back since the last presentation or the last point of Mr. Bikile's presentation touched on the financial elements. So there's a question that's asking, under the supporting documents section, what is the difference between these 3 requests? The first being the organization statements, audit statements, and audit reports. Second being the information on funding sources, so uploading statements for supporting records, identifying funding sources issued no later than 2 years prior to the application for membership. And the third being the most recent annual audit statements by an independent auditing firm, which must be uploaded as recent audit statements no later than 2 years prior to the application for membership. I believe Mr. Bikile touched on this, but because this came up twice and a few other times, I would pass the floor back to Mr. Bikile just to really, clarify some of the confusion around this requirement, specifically for this section, and then we'll move into the next questions. Over to you, Mr. Bikile.
Thank you so much, Adesola. I think the first question is on the requirement of signed code of conduct, right? Thank you so much, Adesola, for that question. I think we have to first be very clear that the rationale behind the financial requirement of this process. The whole purpose that most CSOs, we know they receive funding from external partners, development partners, aid organizations, countries, but the rationale is that at least there should be some level of local ownership, right? And that is the policy position taken by the union when it comes to engaging with CSOs. So, and as an organization, we implement those policy positions of the union approved by our member states. So when we say audit statement, that one is it says audit statements by an independent auditing firm. That means we're trying to determine your financial health, right? And done by an independent auditing firm. So that one is a document prepared by an entity outside of your organization, right? That's number one. And when we say financial statement or information on funding sources, this one is now your own financial statement. You will have to submit to us a financial statement because any organization has its own financial statement reports. And then we want to have a certified report from you. Every year you issue a financial statement, 2025, 2026, and so on and so forth. And we want to know that, and we want you to share with us that report. And it should be no later than 2 years. For example, for this year, any report that was prepared in 2024, 2025 is valid. But any report before 2024 is not valid. So share with us. So we want you to attach those reports either for 2024 or 2025. And when we say audit reports, in here, the intention is for us, we want to have the contact details of the company, right? Because as part of our background check and due diligence, we'll have to check the validity and legitimacy of your report. So share with us the contact details of the company. So the first one is financial statement report issued by your own organization. The second one is an independent audit report prepared by an independent auditing firm outside of your organization. And the third requirement is not necessarily the report, but the contact details of the company that conducted the audit itself. So these are the distinctions you should have in mind.
Thank you very much, Eselo, for clarifying that question. So I think we can move to two other questions. So the first is asking, so with regards to the requirements about the code of conduct. So they're asking if we could clarify whether this refers to, an internally developed document from their end as an organization, or whether ECOSOCC will provide a specific template or standard for a declaration that they can complete and sign onto. And, if this also means they are committing and adhering to ECOSOCC's governance and ethical standards. So that's question one. And there's another question about the application parameters under ECOSOCC, or concern, I should say, about it unintentionally excluding civil society organizations that have, strong impacts at the grassroots level, and they might not formally meet this eligibility criteria. So concerns about this process excluding a few, but I think maybe you can clarify about the HAM and the national chapters and how this addresses that. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ade, for that. For the first question on signed code of conduct and the requirement therein, we are very, very flexible in here. We've been receiving signed code of conduct of the organization itself or the applicant itself. In case they don't have the code of conduct, also we have been accepting an equivalent declaration indicating that you align and you commit to abide with the AU values and code of conducts. Either way, we are fine, and as long as you have attached the code of conduct or a declaration to that effect. The process of applying into the GA process and the risk of excluding other impactful grassroots organization who doesn't meet the requirement, the criteria is a bit stringent because partly because this is the highest decision-making body of ECOSOCC. Apart from that, we have the accreditation mechanism, a much lesser requirement. We have the ECOSOCC national chapter mechanism. When we say accreditation mechanism, this is basically the requirement is very, very basic. We want to know whether you are an organization. We want to know whether you have been registered within EU member states, and then you have competency to provide high-level advice to AU. Those are the minimum requirements we are looking at for the accreditation. So when you apply for the accreditation process, and once you've been granted that accreditation without the financial requirement, because for the accreditation, we don't require financial obligation. With that, you can join a much bigger family of ECOSOC who have an accreditation status, and that will give you the privilege to interface with AU organs and offices, and the right to be consulted on the areas that that you have expertise at. For example, if you're working around human rights issues, our human rights bodies would interface you, engage with you. But for the GA, this one is a decision-making body of ECOSOC, and the requirement is much, much higher than either for accreditation or national chapter. I'm very sure in the near future, we'll be having a similar webinar, basically providing you with more information with ECOSOC accreditation framework as well as the national chapter. But for this segment, we know that the requirement is very stringent, and we understand that it might exclude some CSOs. And it seems that is also the reason why we have eligibility criteria, in actual fact, for you to join our highest political office at the level of ECOSOC.
Okay. Thank you very much, Estelo, for clarifying those questions. So since we're on the topic of the national chapters, so there's a question asking for clarification when it comes to the GA application. So what happens if your country does not have a national chapter already existing? Would ECOSOC establish one within the application period? Because it is part of a requirement.
For that one, I think the answer is very simple. For this election cycle, we don't apply membership in national chapter as a requirement, partly because we are rolling out this chapter in a member state. So far, I think we have launched ECOSOC national chapter in 10 or so member states. It's not fully launched out in all member states, so we cannot apply this criteria for this cycle.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on with the next question. There's a question about the eligibility of a CSO within the GA for 8 years. So they're asking if they can apply again to be admitted into the 5th GA. So I think this is within the new revised statutes, if you can clarify.
If you have served in ECOSOC General Assembly 8 years ago, say for example, you have served in the last time you served in ECOSOC is in 2018, then you are eligible to apply. But for those who have served in the 3rd and 4th ECOSOC, they are not eligible. As per the revised statute, if an organization served for 2 subsequent GA, they will have to have an 8 years grace period before they become eligible to serve once again. So the answer is yes, partly, but only those who have served in the 2nd and 1st GA that are eligible to apply for the 5th GA. For those who have served in 3rd and 4th GA, they are not eligible to serve.
Thank you. So the next question that we can take, maybe pertaining to the diaspora. So there's a question that's asking, please can you tell me if one of our representatives who's based in Ghana but resides in Canada, should we submit her as a representative, or would it be better to put forward someone who has who has nationality within the continent? So they're asking about the representative if they're applying as a continental CSO.
Thank you. I think let me perhaps provide more clarification around that. For African-based CSOs, your designated rep should reside in Africa. That one is there's no exception to that. All of CSOs who are applying for African-based categories, these are for national level, regional level, and continental level. All your designated rep should ideally, and in fact mandatorily, be based in Africa. But for the diaspora CSOs, your reps can reside both in Africa or outside of Africa. We don't have any restrictions. That limitation only applies to CSOs who are based in Africa. So if you are applying for African-based, as an African-based CSO, make sure that your designated rep comes from the continent. If it's outside of Africa, if you are applying as a diaspora CSO, there is no limitation. They can reside either in Africa or in diaspora. There's no limitation around that.
Thanks, Cecily. I think this also touches on one of the questions about whether an organization is based in the US or registered in the US and also working in Africa. Can they be a member of ECOSOCC? So I think that also ties to some of the things that you've already mentioned.
The issue of as long as you have a registration, right? The first requirement is that are you registered in Africa? If the answer is yes, you are eligible to apply as an African-based TSO. If you have registration both in Africa and beyond, it gives you an advantage either to apply for diaspora as a diaspora CSO or as an African CSO. But if you choose to go for the African CSOs, you have to attach registration of African country. If you decide to go for a diaspora CSO, you will have to attach certificate of a country outside of Africa. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Bekele. So the next couple of questions, so there's one that's asking for clarity about national funding sources. So if you can clarify examples of proof of operations and examples of latest publication reports. And then, so national funding resources, to clarify on that, and then to clarify on the proof of operations and also publication reports. So I guess that's more problematic aligned. And then a second question, if we have a statement and audit reports for 1 year, i.e. 2025, can we upload it? And financial statements and audits of earlier years is included with that of our mother organization, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much. The issue of funding from local sources, when we say local sources, these are from national stakeholders or from African institutions, and who are they? I think when we say local sources or national stakeholders, these are contribution from governments, from private sectors, right? Any gifts, like from anyone based in your country, that constitute as local stakeholders, right? If you have received funding from UN or its agencies, IOM, UNDP, WHO, FAO, any funding you received around that is also eligible as local sources, right? Because your country is a member of UN, a member of AU, African Development Bank, and African Bank, and so on and so forth. Those are considered as local sources. But remember that what the example I gave, any organization, you have two categories of funding. You have operating cost to run your organization day to day, and then you have program fundings. And our focus is on your operating cost. If you have an operating cost of $100, for example, 50 or more of that budget should come from local sources, either a contribution from your members, from government, from UN agencies, AU, other African financial institutions. Anything that is within your national territory is considered as local sources. And you have to show a proof, at least certified financial statement, showing that. And for us, most importantly, based on your submission, we should be able to make a determination around that. If you have submitted a document I cannot understand or I cannot make clear determination, then I will have to disqualify the document. So your financial statement should show us clearly where you get this money, and you have to differentiate. I have $1,000. Out of that, 900 is for program and 100 is for operating cost. And from the operating cost, $50 or more comes from local sources. And that kind of clear information should be provided in your statement for me to make a clear determination as to your viability for this criteria. So I think this is a straightforward requirement. In terms of reports and publication, any publication that you've made in the last 2 years, 2024, 2025, right, should be provided to us. It could be your annual reports. You have an organization, normal issues, annual reports as to the kind of activities you have done for that fiscal year. You can attach that one. If you have any project report that you submitted to a funding organization, you can attach those ones. But the purpose of these requirements that for us to establish whether you have the qualification and expertise on the areas you've selected. We want to know that you have a report around, say, governance, if you have selected governance. If you have selected human rights, similarly, you have to attach report and publication that shows that you've been implementing programs and then projects around those thematic areas. Maybe I just will repeat the second question.
Yes, so the second question was asking, about, I think you've covered the national funding sources. There's another question about if an organization's fund comes from donor or institutional partners based outside of the continent, and those donors are neither operational in Africa, would that be grounds for disqualification or not?
Thank you. I think that one is very much implied. As I said, if you received donor funding for your programs, it's not part of our assessment process. Although you have to share with us those funding, but to make a determination of 50% basic source coming from local funding, of course, you cannot have under that section funding from donors. But of course, you are allowed to receive donor funding for your program implementation, but for your basic resources, at least 50% should come from African sources in a very broad like sense, either at the national level from your government, at the private sector, other philanthropic organization based in your country, or contribution from your members, anything, right? But if you are receiving donor funding to run your basic sources, which is an operating cost, that will, of course, disqualify you from this process.
Great, thank you. So moving on to the last couple of questions. So we have a question asking, what application criteria is used for continental CSOs? And what are the application requirements and the responsibilities are the responsibilities the same or different? So basically also asking to give more details of the difference between a regional and continental CSO. So that's question number one. Well, would you like to take that first? Okay.
Let me respond to that. The eligibility criteria for continental and regional CSOs are largely the same. The only difference is when it comes to your operation. If you are applying for regional category, which is 2 per region, in total 10 CSOs getting elected into the regional application, you have to show that, for example, if you are a Kenyan organization registered in Kenya and in Uganda, for example, that will make you a regional organization because you are attaching certificate of registration that is from Uganda and Kenya. And the reason is that it doesn't give you any additional obligation or rights, but you have a very unique perspectives of having programs and presence in 2 countries, as opposed to operating only in 1 country, right? And that kind of unique insight will also help in terms of enhancing, improving our policies and programs. You can provide your expertise from 2 member states. For example, in Kenya and Ethiopia and Uganda, and so on and so forth. So it's all about the kind of unique perspective and experience you bring by operating in those 2 countries, and then you're called as regional CSO. If you are operating as a continental CSOs, your operation is in at least 2 regions, for example, in Southern Africa and Northern Africa. Again, the whole intention is to get your unique perspective from your experience working in 2 regions, right? And that would, again, as I mentioned, it will enhance our policy advisory works. For example, you are invited as an ECOSOCC member to a workshop on immigration, right? And then you are working as a continental CSO. That means you bring expertise from 2 regions. And that is a unique expertise, as opposed to someone who's working only in 1 region or in 1 member state. So there is no additional obligation or additional, benefits or privilege, just your unique insight into in terms of providing inputs, providing quality input into AU programs and policies, either through advisory opinion, either through report, or you attending meetings of AU organs and officers around the thematic area you have chosen to apply for. Over to you, Adesola.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bekele, for responding to that question. I think we can take maybe 2 more because we're shortly rounding down to the end of this webinar. So maybe 2 or 3 more. Okay. So again, about the audits. So there's a question asking for independent audits. Can they submit a report that's from a certified auditor rather than an independent firm? Would that satisfy the requirements about the independent audit firm or not? Or must the auditor be part of a registered audit company with corporate contact details? I think that goes without saying, but maybe you can also clarify.
Again, we've done this thing for the last 4 GA and experienced that any auditing firm or an auditing person, he or she or the company should have a license to undertake audit, right? So if you have resorted to an individual auditor, I have to do a background check. You will have to attach also, because when you say auditing firm, we can easily ascertain their background, right? But if you are referring to, you use an auditor, an individual, then we want to make sure that that person has a license to operate in that country, right? So it works, and we accept so long as we can verify the license of that auditor. And from experience, if we cannot verify his validity or his license to operate as an auditor, then we'll disqualify you. Because for us, an auditing report is an important requirement because we want to assess your financial health, your financial governance, right? So you will have to bring in an audit report done by someone. It could be a firm or an individual with a license to undertake auditing work. And then so long as that is the case, of course, we accept and then we evaluate you accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Bekele. So I think there's another question. There's another question asking about the areas of competency. So now they're asking that does the area of competency have to be a maximum of 3?
As per our rule, it should be maximum of 3. And then once you are elected into the GA, as I said, the total GA membership is 209. And then these members will have to choose at least 2 committees. For example, you can choose a committee on finance and then health, for example. You can choose legal and justice, and then you can choose gender equality and women empowerment, right? And the whole idea is that it should be a merit-based process. When an NGO or a CSO is joining ECOSOCC, they should have the expertise, the qualification, the experience to implementing programs and then projects around those thematic areas. By doing that, we will get a high-level quality advisory opinion issued by ECOSOCC that goes to our head of state and our policy organs, right? So from the 3 you have selected, ultimately, if you are elected into the GA, you will be given an opportunity to join 2 thematic committees. And then you serve in there and generate advisory opinion and report that will feed into our policies and programs at the AU level. The whole idea of ECOSOCC is that we want to consult you and you want to leverage your expertise and experience to enhance and to represent the voice of African citizens in those policies and programs, basically. So definitely, I think for us as a criteria, maximum 3 select. Out of the 3 selected, you'll be given a chance to select 2 and join a committee. We call them sectoral cluster committees. They are 14, and you're allowed to join 2 of them and participate in providing advisory opinion, report, even to attend meetings of the union around those thematic areas, basically.
So colleagues, I think we can take one more question. One coming from Pamela that's asking for clarity about the accreditation and approval processes. So I'm assuming you're referring to the GA process because that's what we're talking about today during this webinar. So SLO, if you could please clarify about what the process is like for the GA and who does the approval.
Thank you so much. ECOSOCC has an credential committee, rather. We call them ECOSOCC Credential Committee. Their job is to evaluate and assess applications. So by the end of 15 July, by the end of this application period, and once we've closed the application, we compile all applications. But first of all, at the level of the Secretariat, we do a basic level of assessment and evaluation. And then after we submit to the Credential Committee to now assess and evaluate applications. But when it comes to audit evaluation, financial report evaluation, those are done at the level of Secretariat. We undertake a comprehensive background check of the audit statement, funding sources, and so on and so forth. Then after, as I mentioned to you, the Credential Committee will sit down, will convene to evaluate applications. So far, we've received over 3,000 applications since we launched the call for application. And then of those who have applied, around 400 have passed the registration phase, have completed that phase, and they have been given a chance to apply for the GA. And now we have 400 who are going through the application process. But once now the credential committee cleared you as eligible CSO, then you go through an election process. That means if you are applying at the national level, there will be an election at the level of Ghana. Those CSOs who have been assessed and then cleared to compete for election will go through an election process. For example, if you manage to clear 50 CSOs from Ethiopia who have met the requirement and passed through the assessment process, that 50 will go through an election process to select top 3 candidates to join the 5th GA. So it's a lengthy process, it's a cumbersome process, but then the first stage is credential committee, and then after, once you have been cleared by that, you go through an election process, either for diaspora, national, regional, or continental. We have an election that will be guided by ECOSOCC election guideline. That will be sometime around September, but before that, we'll have to do a comprehensive assessment by ECOSOCC credential committee.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Bekele, for responding to all of the questions and the concerns and comments that came through the chat box. So I believe that was an active session, and we thank you all, to our participants, for your active engagement and participation in some of the questions, the excellent questions that came through this session. So as we approach the end of the webinar, would like to invite Mr. Bekele again to provide a brief summary and maybe a few key takeaways to highlight some of the concerns or questions or issues that have been raised during this webinar, and also maybe highlight some important next steps and also deadlines, and also offer us the closing remarks. Over to you, Mr. Bekele.
Thank you so much, Ade, and thank you everyone for joining us. This is the first time ECOSOCC is launching a digital platform such as the ECOSOCC Connect to receive applications for our General Assembly application process. And so far, it has been a success. We've received, as I mentioned to you, over 3,000 applications. We expect to receive more in the days to come and the weeks to come. And the whole purpose of this exercise is to elect 209 CSOs who represent African citizens in the ECOSOCC General Assembly, right? And then it's an important engagement. But aside the GA process, we also have the accreditation mechanism, whereby we grant accreditation to CSOs to interface with AU and its organs. And by August, we'll be launching the accreditation mechanism, whereby you apply to that mechanism. The criteria is much less than the GA process. And we expect that that process will give you also an additional avenue for you to participate in ECOSOCC process, as well as participate in AU policies and programs, right? So that is also another opportunity for you to attend. But we hope that you'll submit your application for the 5th GA. And so far, as I mentioned, it has been a huge success for us. We have received grassroots organizations that really represent the experience of our citizens, lived experience of our citizens. And I hope that by the end of this process, we'll have competent, qualified CSOs join the GA and they represented our grassroots within AU process. The deadline for application is 15 July. We still have a month to go, and I encourage you to apply. If you have any questions, we have our email, a support email. You can ask us questions there. We are always on it. You receive instant response to your question. Of course, so far we have received so many questions from CSOs. We are responding to their questions, but we believe that the platform is user-friendly, is easy to use. As long as you have attached the right document, as long as you fill the right information, it will be a good application and you will be assessed positively. But if you have submitted an information that is not accurate, a document that's not valid, as I mentioned to you, that will result in automatic disqualification. So I would encourage you to submit accurate information and accurate document that is certified by an authority in your country. By doing so, you will have a very good application that can pass through the assessment process and then have an opportunity to compete in the election process come September. And I would like to thank you for attending this session. It has been a very good attendance, over 200 attendance we've received today. And tomorrow we'll be having a similar webinar for the diaspora segment as well. Some of you, if you want to join and then understand about the criteria, I will welcome you to join again. But for this, let me say thank you so much and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bekele. Allow me as well to extend our sincere appreciation to all the participants that have joined today and contributed to this session. And as Mr. Bekele has said, hopefully this has provided enough guidance in terms of how to navigate the ECOSOCC Connect platform and also submit a successful application for the 5th Permanent General Assembly. And as you have seen within the chat, so if you require any other information, please continue to engage with us, through the appropriate communication channels and, also within the ECOSOCC Connect platform. There's supports buttons and icons there that you can also play around with and use that to reach out to us should you have any questions or concerns as you progress with your application. So on behalf of AU ECOSOCC, thank you so much for your participation and I wish you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, colleagues.